Hi, welcome to Intro to Watercolours. My name is Quinlan and this is our first lesson.
First things first, you have to get all your materials together before you get started, and also have your object that you're going to draw picked out. So I recommend picking something, either having a picture online that you have on your laptop or your phone in front of you, or you pick something in real life. Okay, things you need: paint palette with basic colors, paint brushes with a soft bristle, and they can be cheap brushes, they don't have to be expensive. Square brush for straight edges. I really like this for making lines. Tissue paper, pencil with an eraser, and 2 jars of water. I like to pick jars. You can use glasses, cups, whatever you have at home. It's fine. I think it's really, really useful to have 2 glasses of water as you're painting when you're mixing colors. It's really good to get rid of the excess color in one jar and then use the second jar as a second one. It keeps your colors clean. And of course, your high quality paper that needs to be at least 200 grams in order to hold the water. So I have my object. Today I'm going to be painting sunglasses. Whenever you're sketching with watercolors, because you can see the pencil through the color, you should try a light pencil mark as much as possible. You can see I'm breaking my own rule already, making the pencil quite dark. So this technique that we're going to be working with today, it's called wet on dry, wet paint on dry paper. It's a good idea to start off with a man-made object. Man-made objects are useful when you're starting off with the wet and dry, when you want more control, because they have nice, clean, sharp lines usually when creating. When we start on the wet on wet technique, you'll see that organic things like plants or bushes or animals, they have a lot more forgiving lines. They're not as sharp lines as man-made objects when we start experimenting with different techniques. Now I'm actually going to give a light sketch for the shadows as well. Now there's a few shadows being presented with this one, but just for today, for simplicity's sake, I'm just focusing on this very strong one here. And before you start painting, when your sketch is complete, give it a good erase so that it's a very faint line left over. Now choosing colors, I have 2 greens, and your instinct might be to put the light color where it's light, but actually this is a much warmer green. It has a lot of yellow, whereas this green has much darker tones that suits the sunglasses better. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of water. When you're adding your water to your paint, you add the paint to the palette first before you add it to the paper. And just to make it a little bit lighter, I'm going to add some white. Now, so I've added a lot of water, and you can see that this is a very, very faint color that we're adding. It's a good idea to start off with a very light shade first. And you can cover the whole thing. As much as possible, you want to start off from lights to darks. Cleaning my paintbrush in the dirty one first, clean water second. Now I'm going to try and make the color a little bit stronger by mixing more green. The more you mix the water into the paint palette, the muddier and thicker the paint becomes. So it's a little bit darker now, as you can see. And I'm going to add that, keep adding that into the lighter one until I get the shade that I want. It's good to split them up like this so that you can bounce between them and add it as needed. So I've painted it on, and as you can see, it looks like a stripe. So I get a little water, and I just add a little water along the edge of the stripe to blend it out a little. In watercolour, as much as possible, you start off light and work your way to dark. So you can build the colour up in layers. Now I'm using my square brain brush to add some darker lines. I'm going to blend it in a little bit. If you want the blending to go well, you'll go from the dark to the light, as I'm doing here. And as you can see, I'm flying through this. I'm going through this very fast. Not literally, not as fast as the video, obviously. But if you try and work actually a little bit quicker, then maybe you might find that you care a little less about having it perfect. And therefore, it's a little bit easier to get into painting. Okay, so now I'm mixing the color for the shadow. I find that when I'm making shadows, students tend to go for grey for shadows. But instead of making it grey, well, I've made it grey here now, I'm actually going to add a little bit of brown. Whenever I'm making greys or shadows, I try and always add a little bit of brown. It makes the colour a little bit more complex than just boring grey. And along the edge here, you can see where the sunglasses meets the table. It's a fraction darker, so I have to make a darker colour now to match that. Again, it's stripy looking. After I've done it, it's a bit stripy looking, so I'm going to add a little bit more water just to blend it out. Oops, too much water. Get rid of that water straight away on your tissue and blend it out again. Now, the black part of the sunglasses is going to be quite tricky because they are actually quite dark. So I'm going to mix the colour that I have already, the brown, and I'm just going to make it much, much darker with black. So I'm actually going to add brown to this as well, because I think it just makes it a little bit more interesting than having plain. So you get this kind of muddy black as opposed to just plain black. I'm going to add a lot more water to this. I'm afraid of it going on too strong on my picture. So, filling it up. You can see my right lens is much darker than my left lens, so I want to layer the colour up a bit more on the right. I also want to make it look a bit more 3D, where the sunglasses meet the lens. So I'm going to take a bit of green and I'm going to do a bit more around the edge of the sunglasses. And I'm done. Really quick, really easy, not too stressful, just practicing, getting it down on paper.